Donald Trump and Elon Musk are attacking American democracy, and it is affecting the lives of millions of Americans. New Jersey Senator Andy Kim is here to share what he has heard from voters. Welcome back to Defending Democracy. I'm Marc Elias. Let's get started. Andy Kim, welcome to Defending Democracy.
And thanks for having me, Mark.
You know, Senator, I didn't set it up this way. I could not possibly have done it, but we are recording this literally while Senator Booker, your co-senator or the other senator from New Jersey, is speaking on the Senate floor. And I saw you took the opportunity to join him for a portion of that. So tell me what that was like and why, other than solidarity from two senators from the same state, you know, why you did and what your message was.
Yeah, I am so proud of Senator Booker for what he's doing. I took the 1 a.m. shift to just make sure that he's keeping the energy up. And, I just really wanted to make sure that, he's successful here, because what he's trying to do is really try to get the American people's attention to just the lawlessness that's happening right now, the challenges that we're seeing, that just, making clear that people know that this is not normal, that this is not how government works. This is not about disrupting the status quo by the Trump administration. This is about trying to really capture our democracy and our government to be able to support their elite agenda, like trillions of dollars of tax cuts to the billionaires in this country. So that's what I really wanted to engage on. But when I talked with Cory at 1:30 in the morning, what I also wanted to lift up is something that I keep hearing at home in New Jersey when I do town halls, which is that it can't just be about what we're against and what we're worried about this administration doing, but also showing what vision we have for this country, what it is that we're trying to push forward. So, holding up their record in terms of what they're trying to do to gut Medicaid and, SNAP benefits and everything else that they're trying to do, while holding up our plan in terms of being able to support this effort to tackle the deepening inequality in this nation, to strengthen our healthcare, to try to make sure that Social Security is protected and solvent for generations to come. Those are the types of things that can really galvanize people, both in terms of what we're standing up against, but you also got to show what you're fighting to be able to put into place and the vision that you have.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly right. And, you mentioned that when you hear from your constituents at town halls and the like, Republicans seem to be hiding from town halls. You are not. You are leaning into town halls and doing town halls in places where Republicans are afraid to. So what are those like?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think a town hall is the quintessential event of American politics. It is the great American tradition. And I keep saying at these town halls, I say, our democracy doesn't just exist down at the Capitol building down in D.C. It's right here. It's right here in Bricktown, Ocean County, New Jersey. It's, right here in Egg Harbor or, other parts of New Jersey. And, I think that that's important, because I think right now people feel so distant from democracy, so distant from their elected leaders. And that distance breeds distrust. And look, I mean, I don't have to tell you, we live in the time of the greatest amount of distrust in government in modern American history. So, the town halls are a way to show your constituents that you respect them. You are literally going to them and meeting them where they're at. And I think that that's important. And it's also important for them to see that you're not afraid, that you understand. Like I often say, I stand up and I say, whether you voted for me or not, you're my boss. My job is to serve you to the best of my ability. And sure, they can get tough, and I get asked tough questions. And, I had, someone wearing a MAGA hat there. I had others that are, concerned about what next for the Democratic Party. I get it. And I had, I'll be honest with you, I had people in the political space that suggested maybe I don't do this town halls now because it's, the emotions are so high. But I actually think that's exactly why you got to do it now. You got to show that you are giving people a place for the outlet of their emotions. Otherwise, it's just going to get pent up more and more and get more and more challenging. And I'll just end with this as like I often say, if you're only having comfortable conversations in politics, it means you're not talking to all the people you need to be talking to. So, we got to go out there and engage. And that exposes and shows, the Republican members of Congress that are hiding from their constituents, and showing that that is an abdication of their responsibility as a representative to the people in that district.
Yeah, and I'm curious, because you came from the House, and people think that in the House there are just a lot of really red districts and a lot of blue districts, but you actually came from a district that was much swingier than that. It had its blue areas and its red areas, and I'm curious because right now all of politics seems to be very polarized, and I understand why. Like, I'm actually a pretty partisan Democrat, so like I'm part of the polarization. But when you ran for Senate, you in some ways ran against the establishment, including the Democratic establishment. Now I think are something of a hero. You broke the so-called line system, which maybe we'll have time to talk about or not. But suffice to say, you were like someone who wanted to meet, as you say, voters where they are. And I'm just curious, as you look out among your colleagues in the Senate, you're on both sides of the aisle, your former colleagues in the House, is it just that is not rewarded in politics, that like isn't the currency these days, or is it more structural to how the districts are drawn in the House and what states are like? Why do you think that your approach is so unusual?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, my district's a district that, Trump won handedly in 2016. He won it again in 2020. I was on that ballot. I won. I was one of only 7 Democrats in the nation to win a congressional district that Trump won in 2020. And so, I actually did a series of focus groups after that 2020 election, basically targeting people who voted for Trump, voted for me. And, I basically asked the question, like, why? Like,
Yeah, right.
why'd you do it? Because, like, look, like, we're pretty different people, I'll be honest with you. But, what I really deduced from this, which is something that really stuck with me, is, I think a lot of people, when they think of a swing district, they think that there's like a blue army and a red army, like
Right.
duking it out every single day, and just whoever prevails wins. But, what you really get a sense of right now, honestly, and I'll just speak bluntly here, is the vast, vast, vast majority of people in my old congressional district can't stand either party right now. They just can't stand politics right now. They don't trust politicians. They don't trust their motivations to run. They're constantly thinking that there's something in it for them, or it's just their ego, or they're trying to enrich themselves. And and so and look, the reason I got into the Senate was a corruption issue that came up in New Jersey. You can see how this feeds into it. So I think that's something that I think about a lot, and I think the town halls, they help break through. I remember I did this town hall in a deep Republican area. It was my second town hall ever. I've now done like 88 town halls, but my second one ever, I was nervous in a Republican area. Stood before people for hours, took the questions, and after I was done, there was a line out the door for people that wanted to talk to me. And I remember there was an older gentleman in the back. He waited 45 minutes to come up to ask me a question. He started by saying, "I just wanted you to know I didn't vote for you." And I was like, "Okay, well, thanks for coming." And he said, "I was very hesitant to come here today." But then he said, "But I'm glad I did." Shook my hand and walked out. And so he didn't even ask me a question. He waited 45 minutes to tell me 3 sentences, and it stuck with me. It was one of the most profound moments of my political career. And what I take away from that is that while I don't necessarily think I earned that man's vote just for showing up and answering some tough questions, I do think I earned his respect.
Mhm.
And I think that that really shows the problems of the trust deficit right now, is that I don't think you can actually trust someone or something unless you have respect for that person or that thing, that institution. And it's hard for people to respect political leaders unless they have a chance to meet them or feel like they're out there engaged in the work of the people, willing to be able to do the hard work. So I think town halls, I think, just this atmosphere and this environment of just trying to kind of get things done. I was someone who worked in national security under both Republicans and Democrats. So I tried to show, like, I'm just trying to get things done, trying to break through this tribalism that we're experiencing. And I'll be honest with you, I think that that's a hunger, frankly, around the country right now, is just trying to think through, how do we try to reestablish that sense of public service that isn't necessarily just thought about in terms of political party affiliation.
I'll be right back with more of my conversation with Senator Andy Kim in a moment. I founded Democracy Docket in 2020 to provide you fearless, unapologetic coverage about the attacks of our voting rights and democracy. Support Democracy Docket's work by becoming a premium member for $10 a month today and get access to exclusive content, events, and more. Sign up now at the link above or in the show notes below. So one of the questions that I have to ask you, because you are in the Senate, you come from the House, you have been in a somewhat, like you said, a red district in some respects because Donald Trump won it, is I'm trying to understand the Republicans. There was a time not that long ago when, essentially, if you were the Speaker of the House, the thing you cared most about was the prerogatives of the majority in the House. You might like the president, you might like the president less, depending on who it was and what your party was. But you really wanted to make sure that you were staking out the prerogatives of the House and the House majority, and you were taking care of your members in that majority. And in the Senate, famously, the Senate is very jealous of its prerogatives, and you expect that a majority leader in the Senate to also really sort of bristle at the suggestion that they can be bullied by the White House. I have been taken by how quick Republicans in the House and Senate have been willing to essentially capitulate to whatever Donald Trump wants. And some of this stuff is wildly unpopular. I'm sure your constituents say, about Doge and some of the other stuff. It's not like good politics for their caucuses. And it diminishes their power to give up, for example, the power of the purse, right? To give up congressional spending, right? Like there are things that and so I'm just curious, like, what is your take on the motivations of Republicans in the House and Senate? Like, what do they love Donald Trump? Are they afraid of Donald Trump? Is it just like it's early in the administration? Maybe it changes. Does it never change? Like, what's your read on it?
Yeah, I'll start by saying that, on the House side, it's a very different House than it was 6 years ago, even. Just in terms of the people that are there.
Right.
I've often broke it down in sort of 3 C's. There's sort of conservatives, traditional conservatives, of which there's not very many left. There are the crazies. You can, fill in the blank, the name, Mad Lib style. Or they're the cowards, people who know better but are worried. You just have a lot more of the crazies, a lot more people that really believe what Trump is saying. And I can feel it, like when we're in the joint sessions of the State of Unions, like you can feel it palpably there. It's very scary being in that room. You also have people just, look like very worried about their own survival, political survival, and just trying to navigate it through. And I think that gets back to some of what I was saying earlier, like it's why people can't stand politics, right? Is this idea that like you're putting your job ahead of like what's right for the country and on incredibly important issues, like how dangerous, Hegseth is to our defense right now, like supporting someone that is not qualified. And I often say, like, the job here is good. It's not that good though. That like you like twist yourself in knots and like betray your moral compass. And so it's alarming. But Mark, it has to me given me this sense of challenge. I was just talking about the different political parties. And look, I get it. There's lots that we need to think about the Democrat side in terms of what we do next. But at least we are still a political party. The Republican Party is not a party anymore. It has been completely consumed by this MAGA movement. And so there's nothing there that looks like to me a traditional party where there are multiple power centers, where there is a sense of operation and deliberation. It's all just dictated by Donald Trump right now. So it looks strong, but that's because it's not actually a party. It is it is just hollow on the inside. And I think that's really indicative by what you see right now. Someone like Speaker Johnson is just only thinking about what's going to keep him in that job, and just trying to navigate that for his own benefit in that type of way. And so,
Well,
it's
can I
alarming
just
and
interrupt?
scary.
Because what's interesting about that is I would argue Speaker Johnson's like he's not looking out though for the Mike Lawlers in New York or the the swing district members in New Jersey. Like how is he what he's doing helping those seats?
Yeah, I think he is thinking about, okay, because again, like if you're not um, a political party anymore,
Right, right,
like their power first and foremost comes from Donald Trump bestowing upon them the ability to continue their jobs. Like there's an immediacy of this effort. And so Donald Trump has shown that unless he blesses you,
right.
like you will not survive in this party, in this environment. So, I think that that's the immediate issue for Mike Johnson. Like he's probably thinking in his mind, he doesn't even know if he's going to be speaker by the 2026 election. So his a more immediate threat to his job is if he crosses Donald Trump, or if Trump and
Okay.
Elon Musk lose faith in him. That's the more immediate concern than the losing some of these swing districts in the 2026 midterms.
Okay, I gotta ask you one New Jersey political question. I am assuming that you are neutral or you're whatever in the governor's race,
Uh-huh.
whatever. There, we are blessed with an abundance of good candidates on the Democratic side for governor in New Jersey. That's my take on it. What people don't always realize is that the New Jersey gubernatorial election is oftentimes viewed as a bellwether for the future, right? Because it is an off-year governorship. So it will be on the ballot in November, along with Virginia, the other one that is oftentimes grouped here together. And notwithstanding the fact that it's a relatively blue state, it has a history of electing both Democratic and Republican governors. Chris Christie was a Republican governor of New Jersey. Uh, uh, before that, Christie Todd Whitman was a Republican governor from New Jersey. So it certainly leans Democratic, but it has both parties. And so as you go around and you talk to your constituents about politics, and maybe it's a little early for them, frankly, to be focused quite yet on the governor's race, but it's an election this year. I'm just curious. What are the issues that you think voters are worried about? I'm not interested in what the campaigns are focused on or what the campaigns are, doing, but like, what is your average, suburban or in one of the urban centers or even in parts of the state in New Jersey is rural? Like, what do they think is on the ballot? Like, what do they think are the things that they are deciding between candidates to solve for them?
Yeah. Well, look, top issue still is high cost of living. Just the prices that people are paying and their assessment of what they're getting for that price. And so, this is something that, like real estate, housing is just through the roof. It's crippling. Public transit had a huge problem, especially last summer. We got new NJ transit trains, breaking down, stranding people at Penn Station, New York, elsewhere. Like just a feeling like it wasn't working and they're paying so much money and anxiety there. I was saying just the other day, there was a woman that came to me and said that she feels so much anxiety right now about her life that it's hard for her to breathe right now. And so look, I think that that's part of what gave Trump success, not just in New Jersey, but around the country in terms of reaching out to communities that wouldn't probably otherwise have supported him, was this idea that he's going to take on the high cost of living, and also that sense of again, government is not delivering. He was positioning himself as a disruptor to that, and I think that those are things that were seen as strengths for him. But now look, I mean, I think right now when I go around New Jersey, I can't tell you how many small business owners are terrified about these tariffs. I mean, this is something that's really breaking through just across the board, just the worry about tariffs, how that's going to affect costs. People know that prices are going up, because of the tariffs and the speculation of more tariffs to come. I think that's going to be, a real weak spot for Trump and for the Republicans going forward, whereas they were, you know, people thought that they were going to deliver lower prices, a stronger economy, but in fact, we're now seeing much more concern about the state of our economy. Many more people saying that we may end up in a recession, and this is directly correlated back to Trump. It's directly correlated to the unpredictability and uncertainty that he is putting our country in. So I do think that that's going to be the driving issue, is about high costs and just this sense of, are things going on the right track? And I think people are feeling very cynical and pessimistic. So we'll see how that goes. But now the important thing is about getting out there and mobilizing and engaging. And that's something, I'll be honest, like, the Democratic Party in New Jersey has to do better at. We've had some issues, as I told you. Like, I got into this Senate seat. I ran
Yes,
for it because we had a senior senator from New Jersey who was indicted on corruption, ultimately convicted. There are just other concerns that people have, and we have to show that we are building a different kind of politics. 84% of people in New Jersey surveyed believe that their politicians are corrupt to some
wow,
level.
84%.
84. 84. I
Wow.
mean, look, I get it. We're this, when your state is known for the TV show The Sopranos, like, there's always this sort of guys, but like, and it's not just on the Democrat side. I mean, you had Bridgegate with the Republicans, with Chris Christie and others. So there's just this lack of trust again. So, the candidates really need to like connect in on that authentic level and show why it is that they are running, how they are feeling earnestly about the need to be able to take on these issues. If they come across as just, another cookie cutter, this is my turn, I'm going to run, I'm going to be governor, they're not going to be successful.
I have to take advantage of the fact that you, before joining Congress, were a national security advisor, diplomat, and civil servant. And everywhere we turn, the Trump administration seems to me, I'm not an expert in any of those things, seems to be skirting or violating, I'll leave that to you, the protocols and the rules about how you keep our nation's secrets secret. Most notably, we had a circumstance in which a journalist at The Atlantic was inadvertently added to a Signal chat. Signal, for people who don't know, is I'm going to say a secure encrypted message protocol, but you may tell me that doesn't matter for the purposes of this. But it,
Still
it
unclassified.
it has a reputation for being a secure way to chat. A journalist was added, and it appears that they were discussing all kinds of classified or at least highly secret information. Just earlier today, it came out that White House National Security Advisor Michael Waltz has done some government business using Gmail. So, like, walk us through this. What are the do's and the don'ts? Is Signal a don't?
It's a big don't when it comes
Why
to
is
classified.
that? Tell us,
Yeah, I mean, look,
explain to those of us who don't have security clearances why this is such a big deal.
yeah, I mean, look, as someone, I worked at the Pentagon, the State Department, the White House National Security Council. So, I've been around a lot of classified discussions and understanding, where we're allowed, where we're not. And like, look, a lot of it isn't just about the chat program,
Okay.
which, it's more, we have more confidence in it than just sort of average text message, but it's not just that, it's also about the device that is on, in terms of like what else is on that device. Do you have potential spyware on that device, things that can keep track of your keystrokes on a laptop or a computer. It's also about who has access to that device. Does it have a passcode on it? And who is checking to make sure that it is that is protected in that kind of way in terms of who has access to it? Where is it left? Who do you always have it around you? And the answer is always no. It's not just about the actual app. It's also just about the ecosystem around it. And when you are the National Security Advisor, the Secretary of Defense, you are one of the most highly targeted people in terms of other countries, other assets trying to be able to get information from you. I often just think about it as like, when I've been going through this, like thinking through like, well, what if I, as like a former mid-level national security official at the White House, what would happen to me? Of course I would have been fired. Like, it's so clearly something where I would have been, there would
Really?
have
So
been
you're
no
saying this is
discussion about it.
something that a normal, if they were not a Senate confirmed position, that this is something someone would be fired for?
Yes, yes, yes. Absolutely, like no hesitation on that.
Okay.
I have, I've been in a lot. I used to do a lot of counterterrorism, counter ISIS work. Over a decade ago. I've been in circumstances where we've had, uh, military operations that were being discussed. And I remember very specifically, the instructions in terms of what is allowed to be discussed on unclassified systems. And what is absolutely the case is you cannot have exact time, the exact
Hmm.
timing of deployments or of strikes. Certainly not wanted to talk about the assets as well as the timing, because then they can, someone can tell where are those assets. If you're talking about F-18s, we know where they're coming from then. Like by just
Huh,
virtue of,
right.
is there a carrier group? Is there a base nearby? So like people can anticipate the directionality that they will come in. They can align anti-aircraft, and other types of systems to be targeting our pilots. Like it's enormously scary in that way. And so like that's very clear. I mean, honestly, it's something that was very baked into it. But I mean, to your point, I'll be honest, like, when I'm seeing like, Mike Waltz and others do this, I mean, some of them have had backgrounds in national security, they know better. But here on the Hill, I mean, when I first came here, I mean, people on the Hill, if you're an elected official, you get access to high level, top secret. You never even go through a training that
Hmm.
teaches you like how to handle the material, how to understand what you can or cannot share. I'm really alarmed by just the it feels like the looseness of classification, but especially at the highest level, there's no excuses there.
All right. So I have you for just one more question, and I got to ask you. You gave hope and inspiration to all of us after January 6th, or on January 6th, the iconic image of you helping after the riot there. You, as I said, you not only I think are underplaying the heroics of your role in really taking on a Senate race at a time when there was a public corruption scandal that was brewing around the incumbent Democrat. Um, and also taking on a system, and you don't have to agree or disagree, but taking on really a culture and a system in the state of New Jersey that bred cynicism in the way in which people appeared on the ballot. And so you say 84% of people in New Jersey think that that politicians are corrupt. They are also scared. They're afraid they're going to lose their Social Security. They're afraid they're going to lose their Medicare. They're afraid their Medicaid's going to get cut. They're afraid they may lose their jobs by what Donald Trump is doing. They're afraid at what they see Doge is doing and what may happen in their community. And so when constituents come up to you, and I don't mean necessarily Democrats or Republicans, just, ordinary, everyday Americans, they come up to you and they just say, it's all too much. It's just overwhelming and I'm hopeless. What do you say to them? Do you give them hope? How do you give them hope? How do you tell them in the wake of all of that, reality, that there is something that politics can offer them, that there is something they can do in their lives, that voting matters? What do you tell the person who's just overwhelmed by it all?
Yeah. Well, I find that first it's important to empathize, to connect with them and share that like you feel the same way too. At these town halls, people showed up. They wanted to know that I was angry and frustrated and worried about what comes next, because they want to know that they are at the same wavelength in that way. Also, I talk about it often in very personal terms. And I talk about how I'm a father of a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old, that just started, soccer league for the very first time. Like that, I say like I'm doing this, because of them. Like I'm so worried right now what kind of America my kids are going to grow up in. People's kids, people's grandkids. Like that's a very personal touchstone that helps them understand why I'm doing the work that I'm doing, and helps them understand why they feel the way that they feel justified in that way. I've been saying this line a lot. As you said, I worked in national security. I lived in a lot, I've lived and worked in authoritarian nations before. I have often said, like, I used to think that the opposite of democracy was authoritarianism, was dictatorship. But over the last 6, 7 years in politics, I've really come to believe that I now say I believe that the opposite of democracy is apathy.
Hmm.
It's if people give up, if they feel helpless. And that's what opens the door for authoritarianism. Of course, there's violence and other means too, but that sense of apathy and helplessness is sort of throw up your hands. And whether that's, oh, this problem is too big, climate change is too big of a problem, how we're never going to solve it, or there's too much chaos happening right now with Trump. How can we ever get our handle around that? But I think it's important for people to try to fight against that sense of helplessness. Now, it's also important to give people something tangible to try to rally around. And I am somebody that comes from an organizing background. I'm always about trying to give a sense. So, like right now at these town halls, I've kind of deduced it down to like three things that I think we need to organize around. So, number one is to save Medicaid. I believe
Okay.
we can still save it. I think about how we were able to stop the Republicans from gutting the Affordable Care Act in 2017. And that was because of just this mobilization, this uproar. It wasn't because of the Democratic Party did this tactic or that tactic. It was because of the uproar of the country that then also lifted the Democratic Party in their actions and also put a constraint on the Republicans. I think we can save Medicaid. I'm trying to mobilize the disability community, seniors, and others that are worried about that. I think we try to stop these tariffs and the high prices. And number three, I think we need to expose the corruption that we're seeing out there right now. And that gives us something to try to rally around. Not just that we're fighting for Medicaid, but we got to save it. Not just that we're trying to, address the high costs in this country, but we got to stop these tariffs. It's something actionable, something that we can try to build a movement around and try to recognize that our work right now isn't just as legislators or as members of Congress, but we need to be, leaders of a movement, need to be part of a movement that isn't going to just be led by politicians. When we look back at the civil rights movement or other types of incredibly dynamic and tumultuous periods in our country, that is what we draw upon. I'll just end with this. I had the great honor, one of the greatest honors of my life is I got to call John Lewis, a colleague of mine. And, the final conversation I had with him, I asked him, like, what does this moment look like to you? As someone who's been through so much. And he did say, like, look, this is a historic moment in the country, which is, tough for me to hear because I'll be honest with you, Mark, like, I don't want to live through history, like, I just want to, like, live through quieter times where I can see my kids more. But what he also said is that these moments of history are defined by those who step up. And he's not just talking about politicians and political leaders. He's talking about everybody. And I just found that to be so empowering. So I hope that that kind of message of fighting against the apathy, of stepping up, of finding tangible ways to be able to focus our energy and to translate that into action. I hope that that is what we can mobilize in this country right now. Because again, I have no choice but to fight for this country. It is my home. It is where I'm raising my kids. And to give up on my democracy and to give up on my country would mean to give up on my future for my kids. And I am certainly not going to do that.
Andy Kim, you are a true American hero. People think that all politicians get in it for the wrong reason. You are in it for the right reason.
Thank you.
You are in a long tradition of people who have gotten into politics to make the lives of everyday Americans a little bit better. And so I know you probably wish that this was quieter times, but these are the times we have. And all of New Jersey and all of America is lucky to have you in the United States Senate. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me today.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Defending Democracy. Please make sure you're subscribed to Democracy Docket's free daily and weekly newsletters to stay informed on the latest voting rights and democracy news. We'll see you next time.